So, Mr. Commissioner, I would like, first of all, thank you for your time and for giving us the interview. And I would like to start from the Vilnius summit expectations. There are great expectations in Europe as well as in Georgia. So what do you consider as a success for the Vilnius summit?
First, I think you're absolutely right that the expectations is shared by Georgia and also the European Union. The expectation is that it's going to be a game changer, not only in the bilateral relationship between the EU and Georgia, but also with the whole Eastern Partnership region. And third, what we expect there is initialing the association agreement, including this economic integration part of it. And I also hope to move substantively in our visa dialogue on the visa liberalization action plan. And I also expect some concrete result in some sectoral cooperations, the benefit also for Georgia. I'm particularly talking about transport. Plus, the fourth element probably would add also a clear roadmap for another 2 years of the Eastern Partnership, providing Georgia with so-called association agenda, much higher level of cooperation with the European Union. In other words, and only in one sentence, we expect laying the foundation for building more of the European Union within Georgia.
As for initiating association agreement, yesterday you and Prime Minister expressed hopes for it today as well. So is the progress Georgia have shown enough for Europe, or is something else to be done?
Now, if we're talking about the association agreement and the negotiations, then the progress is enough for us to be optimistic that we will be able to solve the remaining two issues there over the summer time, and to be ready at the Vilnius for the initialization. The same concerns also the visa dialogue. And let me underline another thing which I actually said after my meeting with the President Saakashvili only 3 days ago, and it is extremely important for the success of Vilnius summit, for Georgia to make the best use of those opportunities, that Georgia comes to Vilnius as a stronger democracy.
You mentioned stronger democracy. Can the recent political developments harm the process? Because we had listened a lot of concerns about the arresting political officials. We have heard also the EPP's concern and the declaration where they said that these developments can harm Georgia's integration to Europe. So are these concerns and threats so real?
Yeah. Let me divide the issue into two. The first one is cohabitation, and this is not easy. The Georgians are facing this for the first time. This is a kind of test of the maturity of democracy. And despite some ups and downs, I see already a number of the concrete results where particularly the platform of parliament, the cooperation between the government and opposition has helped to move the certain things forward, whether we're talking about the foreign policy, some constitutional issues, or judiciary reform. Now, the second one is these judiciary processes. Now, let me quite clearly say the following. No one is above the law. There should be no impunity. And no such prosecution and the court which is based on the solid evidence where the rights of the defendants are guaranteed, where the proceedings is based on the Georgians' international commitment, where there are the guarantees for an impartial, fair and transparent proceedings, it shouldn't stand in or become an obstacle in the European path of Georgia. By the same time, if there are any suspicions of the political involvement in this process, then of course it raises concern, and that's why not only EPP but also other politicians in the European Union, Cathy Ashton, the High Representative, myself, make it very clear that these principles need to be assured for the Georgian authorities to avoid any suspicions that there is any political involvement in the justice.
I would like to ask about Georgia-Russia relations as well. After the war, Europe and the West has asked the parties to start the dialogue. Now the dialogue is started, but we see some actions at the occupied territories. We see the borderization, we see the problems with the locals, for the local people. So how can Europe, as Georgia's partner, address these issues?
To continue to be a reliable, transparent and predictable partner for Georgia. To be a partner who will always recall the commitment to the principle of territorial integrity of Georgia. To be a partner who, through the Geneva talks, would support the negotiations aiming at addressing those issues. To be a partner who continues to support the policies of the Georgian authorities reaching out the populations in those breakaway territories, and also to be a partner who does not shy away in its contacts, including at the highest level, with the Russian Federation to make a point. By the way, on this so-called borderization, we made the point at the last summit with the Russian Federation, the President Barroso, High Representative, directly to President Putin.
Taking in mind the last developments in occupied territories, how can you evaluate the effectiveness of EUMM mission? The mission cannot still access the occupied territories, so what can be done to change this reality?
It is obvious that the effectiveness of the EUMM is being affected by Russian authorities and de facto authorities from those breakaway territories not to allow the access of the monitors to the other part of the administrative boundary line. We are not missing a single opportunity to call on them to provide us with that access, because the EUMM contribution to lower the tension is to the benefit of local populations on whatever side of that boundary line they live.
The Vilnius summit has become a kind of watershed for the Eastern Partnership as a project. So after 4 years from the start, how can you evaluate the Eastern Partnership as a program, as a project? Has it reached its goals?
I think it has reached its maturity. I think it has developed into a project which has proven to differentiate between the various ambitions of our partners. And I hope very much that Vilnius summit will be able to prove that the project is not based only on nice words, although those are the words of encouragement and support, but also on deeds. And I'm referring again to the association agreement, on this political association and economic integration being reflected through initialing and then later on signing of the association agreement. Because if I look at the instrument of the European Union, the association agreement is the most powerful, transformative instrument the European Union is having. The next one, even more powerful, there is one. It's enlargement itself.
And for addressing the future of after Vilnius summit, what can be next step? after November 2013?
Implementation. I think we will not stop there, of course. We will have plenty of time to prepare for signing, building up the capacities here in Georgia to strengthen the capacity to implement this agreement to the benefit of Georgian citizens. We'll be talking about creating the coordinating mechanism for the domestic purposes and also interacting with us. We'll be talking about strengthening the sectoral cooperation. We will be continuing in our programs to strengthen the rule of law in this country. There are no limits to our ambitions. There are no limits to our willingness to move Georgia closer to the European Union.
So you said no limits. You mentioned enlargement also. So do you see Georgia as a member of European Union in future? And what is to be done for this?
Listen, I'm a pragmatic person. I see a Lisbon Treaty being ratified by all the member states, saying in one of its Article 49, that any European country promoting the values of the European Union is based on could become a European Union member states. On the other side, I see Georgia having a clear, ambitious, not only getting closer, but sometimes someday eventually to become the European Union member states. There is going to be a lot of work for those two to match, and for the member states to be persuaded that Georgia is ready for such a step, and that such a step eventually would strengthen the European Union. So we are not there yet. We are just a couple of months before the Vilnius summit, where we have this important step to initial the association agreement. And I'm confident that actually through initialing, signing, and most importantly implementing, we will move closer to this goal you referred to.
And one more question, how big is the role of upcoming presidential election in this process? How close Europe watches this process, and what is to be done to hold democratic elections?
As any elections in our partner countries, any elections are important test for the democracy. Any elections is an important stamp on the quality of the democratic process. And it doesn't concern only, of course, partner countries, but also the European Union member states. What I expect, and I hope that the trend to deliver on the free and fair elections in a better and better way is going to be upheld. I hope very much that it will be one of those elements which will make Georgia a stronger democracy at the time of the Vilnius summit.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.